Karma does not exist. We should stop fooling ourselves into thinking that this world is fair. This content may not be suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. There are bullies living a well and lavish life. Murderers and child rapists that never got caught. Some will die without ever getting caught for their crimes. How do you cope with the idea that not every evil person gets what they deserve? I understand that there is no inherent justice or fairness in life. Good people often don't get the rewards they have earned either. People are attracted to the fallacy of a just universe, but it's not true. I think it is partly because it makes them feel better about either one being in the wealthiest 20% of the world. Oh, I must deserve it, and poor people don't, so I don't have to feel sorry for them, or share with them, or two not being in it, and thinking they will get rewarded in an afterlife to compensate them. The reality is that what you deserve has very little to do with what you actually get, and accepting that is one of the things we need to do if we want to improve the world. Life is not fair, and nobody ever said it would be. I believe in an afterlife, so just because they don't get punished now doesn't mean they won't be punished eventually. Even if there were an afterlife, we have exactly as much evidence that the good are punished and the evil are rewarded as we do for the opposite. It's not about evidence, it's a coping mechanism, just as OP asked for. If believing in a just afterlife helps someone get through their shitty day and maybe gives them a bit of hope they wouldn't have otherwise had, then so be it. Coping mechanisms don't have to be real. Think of how many people use things like television and video games. They just have to help you cope. Agreed. Who or what is making the decisions on who's actually good? Then upon the realization that an entity like that exists, with infinite power yet allows rape, torture, war, murder, disease and starvation, why should we respect it? It's either too incompetent to do anything about the plight of man, or it sees the suffering and chooses to do nothing. Either way, that's not anything to be respected or worshipped. It's either lazy or incompetent, and honestly, if a being like that is running the show, it explains more about the nature of humanity than anything else ever could. Or maybe whatever made us did it for shits and giggles. Maybe whoever did it already died. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if some biological waste ejected from a passing alien ship was the catalyst for life developing on Earth. Yay, we rise from trash and thus become it. Generally, people that are terrible to others can get surface level enjoyment from their sick thrills, but I doubt they can ever achieve true inner peace and happiness. They are usually bitter and quick to anger, which must be a pretty miserable way to live. We're all dealt different cards in life. We can see the cards in our hands, and the people we love and care about share the hand they were dealt, but we don't know very much about the cards dealt to other people. While it's tempting to think that everyone who has done a horrific thing would get what's coming to them, that's just not reality. I think that we ultimately answer to ourselves. So while some of them may have escaped the law, they still have to live with themselves and knowledge of the things they've done when they see their own reflection in the mirror and cease to recognize it. A lot of people think karma means what goes around comes around and lose hope, but that's not what karma is. Karma is action, and our actions in this life will be balanced in the next. They don't need to be caught to suffer. With self-destructive tendencies and habits, not many get away from their crimes 100%. They will inflict suffering upon themselves. You're just not there to witness it. And that's completely fine with me. I got better things to do. The world is fundamentally unfair. The basic human recreation activity for lack of state coercion is to raid the village next to you and pillage and abduct women. We crush the weaker tribes and force our genes upon them. Primitive tribes like it, like we like sports. Being a good or a bad human can both yield benefits. Life goes on. I like to think that most things are equal. That for all the awful things that happen, we gotta think about all those people that do things without recognition. Do things because it's nice or a good thing, expecting nothing in return and mostly not getting it. I think that the number of awful things in the world is huge, but as a species of survivors we remember the bad more often as to evolve into better beings. Most do get caught. That's better than none, I reckon. Not really. According to the FBI, only about 45% of violent crime leads to arrest and prosecution, and that's not even counting non-violent crime. This is also taking into account how ruthless and highly trained American law enforcement is. You don't even wanna know the percentages for countries like India or parts of Africa and the Middle East. I don't care about punishing people, and don't think bad people deserve punishment, to be honest. They usually need like support and a better understanding of the world. What's the alternative? I start investigating crimes and deal out whatever form of justice I feel is correct. I have bills to pay and things I want to do. A therapy technique called radical acceptance, which is pretty much what it says on the tin, and coming across the just world fallacy in psychology. Justice and good and evil are necessary to order our own behavior as people, but are not inherent. Bad things happen. Good things happen to bad people. It's an unfortunate fact of life that we must accept. My family member was killed brutally. His murderers were caught, and their sentences were a joke. I have to believe that what they did will come back to them. I'm petty enough that I may help it along in little ways so that they remember that society's debt has been paid, but we will not forget, ever. Through compartmentalization and distraction, court justice, street justice, and a perpetrator's death don't bring victims back from the dead or undo the damage that's been done. Existence brings with it unspeakable atrocities and unimaginable pain. There's no true remedy, solace, silver lining, or justice. The only real solution would have been for us to never have existed at all. By remembering that bad things happen to good people, there are no rules or justice to what happens in life, and worrying about fairness is a waste of time. There's a hell, so if they haven't repented and they die, hell is way worse than any punishment on earth. I know plenty of scientists, geologists and theoretical physicists that would be very interested in literally any scrap of evidence you have of this being true, because a lot of people with a lot more money and power than you have all tried and failed to prove the existence of any kind of afterlife throughout history, many long before Christ was even born. Not a single one of them came up with anything. Maybe just believe in the inherent good nature in people and just hope that there are more good people than evil. Maybe in some way we can all be more good than bad in our lives, and maybe just maybe that's enough. When they do die, they will be punished for their crimes, either by hell or being shat on in their next life, perhaps by the ones they shit on in life, depending on what you think happens when we die, or they die and that's it. All the crime and bad deeds they committed are left unpunished, the perpetrator never once having to answer for any of it. Everyone dies. You could be the most pious, generous soul on earth, or you could be a sadistic secret police commissar in charge of executing political prisoners, including children. The fact remains, everyone dies, and there's not the thinnest scrap of evidence that reincarnation or an afterlife exist. How many cold cases are solved where the suspect has died like 30 years ago at the age of 80 surrounded by a loving family? Because it happens a lot more often than you would think. There's no justice or karma in the universe, only the human instinct to find meaning in the meaningless. Tell me, when a fat child has a tantrum at the mall because her mom won't buy her a new $1,200 smartphone, while on the other side of the earth a kid is curled up in the fetal position dying of starvation, where's the justice in that? Who goes to hell for that? Who's the bad guy? Should a 2-year-old who's only known hunger, disease, war, and death be granted a slot in heaven for simply having existed? Should a fat child burn in hell for being young, immature, and selfish? It's almost like there's no meaning in life, and there's no universal karma or justice, just the cold reality of being alone in the world that won't even remember you existed in 100 years. Personally, I believe that there is a difference between a temper tantrum thrown by a fat kid and a child who has only known starvation. While the starving kid won't have a guaranteed place in heaven, neither would the fat kid have a place in hell. I think it would be judged on their future deeds and ones already done. For all we know, the fat kid would grow up to be a famous philanthropist, whereas the starving kid would grow up to be a warlord ordering the deaths of thousands. Circumstances would possibly taken into account. There's a natural balance that is always working to stay in a perfect equilibrium. We really should be worried about what would happen if it ever tipped too far, rather than what gets by when it is just off balance a tiny bit. Oh, they will. Hell. In the 13.8 billion years the universe has existed, of the 4.5 billion Earth has existed, to think that there's some special little pocket universe for all the good and bad humans to go to, but no other species on Earth or the universe, is just laughably stupid to me. That's some 16th century tier narcissism, to assume that Earth and humans are the center of the universe, that we are so uniquely special, that we get not one, but two afterlife dimensions, that we are slotted into like a Harry Potter sorting hat. It's completely and utterly ridiculous. To say we are alone in the universe is like going to the beach with a red Solo cup, scooping up some water and saying look, there's no whales in the ocean. Because that's basically our view of the observable universe, and to think that no other form of life has come before, or will come, after is the height of humanity's arrogance. Then to go even further and boldly claim that our afterlife is the only true afterlife, not only on Earth, but for the entire observable universe, it would make any sane man laugh hysterically. I gave up on humanity long ago, and everything is relative. The best we can hope for is a genocide of all human life. Nature can fix itself, given time. Understand that their lack of morality or conscience likely stems from deep-rooted trauma or hate, how they were likely hurt before they began hurting others. There's also hard-working people that never succeed, innocent people who have been convicted of crimes they didn't commit, good people whose lives were taken from them etc. I take comfort that, even though evil people don't always get what they deserve, good guys don't always either. Death is cold and merciless to all. You may escape the rule of mortals, but none can escape the judge that is death. I cope with the idea that knowing, even if the afterlife isn't real, the void is an empty world where no one hears you scream. Are you over the age of 4? Then welcome to the real world where the concepts of fair and deserve are abstract terms that do not in any way relate to anything real. How do you cope? By not being a moron who can't deal with the idea that just isn't how the universe works and it never will be. They are just miserable I hope, and I really hope that deep down they know they are not good people. In 1% of population are psychopaths. I think this is much higher in CEOs and police force / military / politics. I believe that 5% or more of CEOs are evil. Being nice don't please the shareholders. Being brutal and focused does. Just look at Bernie Madoff. I just don't think about it. Misdeeds go unpunished and unknown all across the world all the time, and there's just nothing I can do about it. It's majorly upsetting, but I can either sit around depressed about that fact or I could just focus on my own life and try to be as happy as possible. Evil can get lucky, but they don't matter. What matters if we catch people and punish those who did it, causing a ripple effect of less and less cases of it happening. Don't get me wrong, justice must be served, but yeah. Things happen and sometimes we can't do a thing about it. Life isn't fair. Keep your head up, work hard and try to live the best life you can. Life is way too short to worry about shit like that. Instead just focus on trying to be a good person and living a good life. Be good to your friends and family and do the best you can with the one single life you have. If evil does unfortunately enter your life, then confront it face to face and deal with it like a man. They have to live the rest of their lives as themselves. They will never know the power of compassion, love, or camaraderie. They will never experience deep human connection. They'll never be happy, only excited. It's not a life I would want to live. It's part of the world that we are here to fix. But I usually think of the other side. A good person losing their home to a fire and being denied by their insurance, for example. It's just like how we cure diseases. Life's not fair, but we have the power to make it fair. Life is not fair. The good guys don't always win. It's just a fact of life that I wouldn't say that I cope with so much as I accept it as part of living in the world. All we can do is our best to right the wrongs and understand that it's not always going to work. This is why you need to have an ego. They are suffering the punishment of being nothing / worthless in your eyes. They may not understand that and how bad it is, but that's because they are nothing, the worthless bastards. Ultimately you would be prepared to fight them if it was them or you. Yes, it's circular, like a bird's nest. That circle is our defense. A murderer and a rapist are free game. They are often able to work their way out of situations if they are caught. Justice is non-existent now. It's part of reality, just like good people don't always get the appreciation they deserve. People die, people live, harm and violence exist, and there is nothing you can do about it. You can change perspectives, but not reality itself. I always think about this. African Ugandan kid. They live with scarce resources. Mom and dad and sister. On day some crazy mercenaries come and burn their village, decapitated his dad, rape his mom, and kidnap his sister. He survives by playing dead, and all the atrocities they face with near colonization. I think about that to remember that life is savage AF, and to be grateful of the privilege I have of living a normal life. Understand that evil is subjective, and at some level everyone is evil, so I believe punishment is inherently cruel and useless. Instead we should look to reintegrate and see how this damaged person can contribute to society most effectively. I believe everyone who does bad things is only doing those things as a result of their experiences and the society which shaped them. This means they shouldn't be the sole body which gets punished for the crime, but are instead simply the conduit through which society committed an evil, and it is that society which should be held responsible. Remember that nobody really deserves anything. Wow. Talk about pessimistic. Am I right? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for watching Random Reddit TTS. Be sure to have a wonderful day, you snuggle muffin.